Before answering the question that the title of this video asks, I'm going to give a disclaimer. Because this playlist, as well as a couple of the playlists after this one, may insult many people. So I ask that you do bear through them. I do ask that you do watch them. They are designed to be very short, not like my testimony. And I also ask that you do what was suggested in the How to Stop Sinning Through Grace video number 8, Child of God Pride. There were some very important things mentioned in that video, as well as my testimony number 21. I suggest some things about Christians, how we need to put things back in the fire. So I ask that while you're watching these videos, any challenges that come, put your previous knowledge right in the fire with it. Seek the truth, and ask Jesus to purify the knowledge that you have, as well as what's been presented before you. I say all of this because in the past, the things that I'm about to say have caused offenses to many people, but they didn't actually really test to see if what I was saying was true. So I hope that won't be the case with anyone that's listening right now. Now, to begin this playlist of destroying golden calves, the answer to the question, the Christian religion, is it run by Satan? The answer is yes. As insulting as this may feel or seem, or even as strange or such an odd statement as it might feel like, it is actually true. Now please keep in mind, when I'm saying the religion of Christianity or the Christian religion, I'm speaking about the churches that people go to on Saturdays and Sundays and all these Bible studies and prayer meetings and fellowships and ministries, all these mega churches, all these churches that have their own names and that are part of all these denominations. I'm speaking about mainstream Christianity, what you think of when you see a cross, when you think of when you hear about church. I'm talking about all of that. Now, this isn't to make people feel comfortable in thinking, oh, okay, cool, I don't go to church, so this doesn't actually necessarily apply to me, because it still applies to those that aren't in church. Because there's people who have left church, who were never part of church, who still operate under the Christian religious mindset, their ways of thinking. Maybe not the same information, but it's the way of thinking. And I'm also saying this not to enable people to feel comfortable who are part of smaller Christian groups. Because it is true that the smaller groups are not so much as bad as the bigger ones. But the truth is, you can still find a lot of the traces of the Christian religion even in the smaller groups. So what do I mean by this? How is Satan involved in all of these Christian movements and all of these Christian groups? Or at least most of them, to the point where you could really just say all? Well, it's easy. Jesus said to test the fruit. Jesus told us that if we want to find out if a false prophet is false, and false prophets are likened to false teachers, if we want to see who's false, we test them by their fruit, and their fruit's works. Every church gathering that you go to right now has sinning members. They are full of errors. Some of them might have less errors than others, but they all have errors. And the Bible calls the spirit of error the spirit of this world. You'll find that all of them are confident in their doctrines. They're confident in the beliefs that they teach. They reject correction. They fight and bicker with one another. And that's most of them. Some of them may not even fight. They just back up and say, oh, yes, yes. They become yes men, where they try not to fight and they try and stay out of conflict and just try and agree to just win people over, which is a much more passive-aggressive movement in spreading their denomination. The people in church in general literally stay in sin, even if they get deliverance from some sins. It's very rare you ever hear anyone testifying of being perfect and ceasing from sin. Some churches literally preach against complete sinless perfection. Meanwhile, it's sin that leads people to the lake of fire. Our works are what God is judging us on. Those who sin, the wages is death. These churches do not teach people how to completely stop sinning and instead live in obedience to the Father through Jesus Christ. They help with other issues, encourage people spiritually, and then enabled even a little bit of sin while saying sin is bad. This means once it comes down to repentance, true repentance, where people literally learn how to stop sinning, if the church doesn't help there, that means all the other help that they are giving quickly stops being help. It then becomes distraction. A lot of people get deceived by these churches and by these fellowships and by these groups because Jesus uses them. Listen, God used a donkey to speak to Balaam. That doesn't mean that we're all supposed to now go find a donkey and just hope that's going to speak to us and get the answers to life. And he used a burning bush to speak to Moses. That doesn't actually mean that now we're supposed to look for burning bushes or go and find a burning bush or go find a donkey to talk to us because God spoke through those means. No, it's not. We're not supposed to put our trust in the donkey. We're not supposed to put our trust in the burning bush. Moses definitely didn't do that. This is exactly what Christians do with their favorite ministries and their favorite ministers. They put their trust in them, and they acknowledge that when I listen to this minister, when I go to this ministry, I'm going to hear a word from God. And then they get deceived. People get deceived when they see these signs and wonders and then just assume that God's pleased with this particular assembly, or they're pleased with this preacher, they're pleased with this because they see the miracles. And Jesus spoke against this. He said there's going to be people doing prophecies, doing miracles. There's going to be people who are driving demons out of people, and he's going to say to them straight, "Depart from me, I never knew you, you workers of iniquity." A worker of iniquity is a worker of lawlessness. Workers of lawlessness don't have God's laws in them. They're lawless. And if they don't have God's laws in them, that means they can't be obeying God. And that is the problem. People judge their church based off of the manifestation of the Spirit, or if they like their preacher, or if it sits at home with them, or if they agree with the message. Jesus didn't say to judge like that. In one of my testimony videos, I mentioned how I experienced church demons. How I would go to church, I'd pray against demons, and then the preacher would start manifesting, and the demon would speak out of them. I've had times where Jesus would tell me he doesn't want me to partake in certain things, and I would sit out and make sure that I don't partake, and I'll just continue to pray and seek his face throughout the whole service. Evening service, a guest speaker would come who wasn't there that morning, and demons would speak out of him saying, "How dare you not sing for Babylon?" Meanwhile, Jesus told me not to partake in the choir that day because everyone was in sin. That literally happened. Now, when people are partaking in these religious service and fellowship with each other, and it's very clear that it's a demon speaking off the pulpit, how are they discerning this? You see, the religion of Christianity that we know today in this world, the one that's dominated, the one that's taken over and crushed down the true gospel, the gospel of righteousness, the gospel of perfection, the gospel of Jesus Christ where we walk just as he walked. This Christianity that crushes what I just said, it's not found in the Bible. At least, it's not found in the Bible as a commandment. The best place to find it's Matthew 23. You can go through each one of those verses, and you can find them doing exactly what Jesus was rebuking the Pharisees for. You see, if you want to find out if the religion of Christianity is actually of God or if it's of Satan, again, all you have to do is test the fruit. The works of Satan is lies, sin, fear, hypocrisy, and error. These are the things you find in church. These are the things you find in the religion of Christianity. These are the things you find in the leadership. These are the things that you find in the congregation. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, no, not my pastor. Oh, no, not my assembly." But you don't actually know that. It may actually take Jesus to show you the secret sins that are going on. Then others say, "Well, there's no perfect church, and we're not going to be perfect till we die." And others say, "Well, the church is for those who are sick." Well, here's the problem with this. Jesus commanded to be perfect. He said we're supposed to have no spot or wrinkle. It's him who washes us. So when are people who come to church going to come to that place? Because according to the doctrines, you never can until after you die. But if you die in sin, you go to hell. Here's the problem. This is a spiritual issue, and a lot of people are looking at the carnal, and they don't see the spirit. If you were to truly discern the spirit of religion, you'll find that behind it is Satan, and with him is a false Christ. And I'm speaking about the religion of Christianity here. You have Satan, you have a false Christ, and then under them you have these ministers, you have these pastors, you have these prophets, you have all these evangelists. God will use them. He will use them. But here's the problem. So's Satan. And you find out by testing fruit, testing testimonies, lining things up with the scriptures. And the problem is many people are victimized by these same spirits. They get seduced, they get enchanted, they get bewitched, they fall in love. And then they think, well, you know what? It just can't be that bad because I just felt the presence of God there. Well, I'm going to be explaining some things to you in these upcoming videos. It's possible to feel a really great feeling and it's not God. I'm going to end this video here. And the next video is going to go into how the religion of Christianity is actually an idol. It's an image of the nations. Though Jesus uses Christianity, he didn't start it. Man did. And the reason why there's miraculous things happening isn't only because God uses it to reach out to his people, but because demons are also using it to seduce people into believing and following their false Christ.